This is the Perfectionism Project, the only podcast created specifically for perfectionists who are building businesses. I'm your host, Sam Laura Brown, perfectionism expert and entrepreneur. I teach perfectionists how to plan properly, consistently follow through, and rest without guilt so they can build profitable and fulfilling businesses without burning out. I've helped over 1,000 perfectionist entrepreneurs do exactly that inside my program, Perfectionists Getting Shit Done. If you're tired of procrastinating, overthinking, and half finishing your ideas, you're in the right place. Now let's dive in. Okay, so this episode is quite a specific one. And if you are listening to this and you want to make a full-time income from your business, as many of our PGSDers do, that's the goal they're working towards. If you are not yet close to being able to quit your job, then this episode isn't for you right now, but you are welcome to listen to it right now so you know what to be thinking about when it does come time to quit your job. And this episode specifically, if you are the person who is ready to quit your job and yet haven't yet quit your job, and you will know that's you when you hear that. But if that is you, then I wanted to record this episode specifically for you because I was coaching a PGSDer on this today. And as I was coaching her, it just really reminded me what it was like to be in the midst of that question, should I quit my job? Whether it's a part-time job, whether it's a full-time job, should I quit my job? Am I really ready to go all in on my business in terms of not just like emotionally going all in and being fully committed, because that is required before you go full time in your business. You need to be able to have that commitment before the income is there, because the commitment is what will create the income. But then there will be a point where you have that momentum, where you are in a place where you are able to quit, but it will be scary to do so. And it is at that point that you could get stuck for a while. And so I want to share my stories that I have about this, my experience that I have about this. I want to share also some of the things I shared with my client today and with our other PGSDs today on the call, because I just know if you are the person who is in the situation where you really just want someone to tell you to leave your job, but also you are scared to leave it, then this episode will be just perfect for you. So I'm just thinking, where do I start with this? So one thing that comes up when it comes to, am I ready to leave my job? Am I ready to quit? One thing that can be really helpful is to consider whether you would be relieved if you found out today that you were to be let go. And for example, for the PGSDer I coached today, she was like, yes, 100% I would be relieved because I want to leave. I'm ready to leave, but I'm not leaving because I'm scared that if I leave, I will be letting them down. And even though I know technically I know I'm replaceable and they will find someone else, I feel like I'm letting them down if I was to leave. And so I should stay. And also, and this is something I really want to talk about in this episode, that when you are in a situation where your job isn't that bad, it can be so easy to stay until it gets to be horrible, until it gets to be completely unsustainable, until you're completely burned out. And this is one of the other things that came up in that conversation, that this is so important, this lesson that I'm going to be sharing today. It's so important that if you don't know yet when you'd be ready to go, but if you ask yourself, okay, when would I be ready to go? If the answer is, well, I would be ready to go if I was completely burned out or if I was just burned out, then what will happen is you will subconsciously create burnout for yourself. You will say yes to extra work. You will work extra hours. You will also burn yourself out from thinking resentful thoughts about your job, about your boss, about the work that you're doing. By complaining in your head, that's exhausting to be doing that. So that will contribute to the burnout. You will burn yourself out so that you have a reason to leave, so that you can justify leaving. So part of the work, if you're in the situation where you are ready to leave. And even though it's going to be uncertain, even though it's going to be scary, you ultimately feel like you are ready, but you haven't yet made the leap because you're scared to do it. Then part of the work is being able to make a decision when you're not forced to make one, and to be able to change something that isn't horrible. So we get told all the time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we really, I believe, almost everyone, I'm sure there are some people who haven't been taught this, but almost everyone is taught that the only reason you'd really make a change is because something is wrong. Like if a couple break up, it's because there was something wrong in the relationship versus someone just wanting something different. If someone leaves a job, it's because there was a bad situation or because they were in a bad career, not because actually that job was great and they loved what they were doing. They just wanted something different. And so something that I learned from Brooke Castillo, who has been a long-term mentor of mine, something that I have learned from her, something so powerful, is this idea that you can love something and leave it. And this was absolutely pivotal to me when it came to leaving my job. So, my backstory is that I started my business when I was a full-time university student. So, I have a law degree and a finance degree and a diploma of French. So, I started my business in 2013. I graduated with those degrees in 2015. And then I went into an accounting job and I worked full time as an insolvency accountant, so liquidations and bankruptcies at one of the big accounting firms here in Brisbane City. So I did that for approximately 2 years. I quit that job in 2017. And then I went to a part time job and I quit that job in 2019. And that is when I went full time in my business. So for me, it was quite a journey. There were two really big leaps involved. Well, I think first of all, I guess the leap to start my business. Then after that, there was the leap to really be committed to my business, which that happened for me in 2016 after I'd already graduated, to be like, I am just sick and tired of pretending that I'm really trying my best. Like I am really ready to give it my all. So that was a big turning point for me. That was April 2016, about 2.5 years after I started, technically. It's kind of like there's a time when you sign up for the gym, and then there's a time when you actually commit to being someone who's fit and being someone who works out. And some people sign up for the gym and never commit to being someone who works out and is fit and make that transformation. So there will often need to be the time where you start and then the time where you really commit. For some people, that will happen at the same time. But for me, though, there was 2.5 years between that. Even though I felt so committed in the beginning, this is a whole separate thing, but I really just got committed to getting out of my own way and showing up and being seen and figuring it out. That was April 2016. And then, so I was at that point in my accounting job already, working full time, going on the train, the 717 train every morning, every weekday morning into the city, about a 33-minute train ride. I would have my laptop on my lap, writing a blog post on the way there, on the way home. And when I had to make the leap, or didn't have to, when I chose to make the leap to leave that job and then to go into a part-time job, and then to leave that part-time job, I worked part-time as an administrative assistant at one of the local hospitals here. I'd had that job before as a university student, or a very similar job at the same place, and I got a similar job again so I could still have an income coming in besides my business, but have more time for my business because it was only afternoon hours that I worked. So then I made the leap in 2019 to quit that job. So I have been through such a journey with growing my business, and I have documented a lot of that journey on the podcast too. If you go back through the archives, if you go into, say, 2018, 2019, for example, you will see a lot of episodes where I documented that journey in real time. I think it's so helpful to hear about it now from present day me, who is now really has the wisdom from that. And it's also helpful to hear from past me who was in the thick of it. So you're welcome to go back and listen. I love documenting things. So with that said, with that said, the thing that really helped me, among many others, and this is something we coach on a lot inside Perfectionists Getting Shit Done, is leaving jobs and not being in a rush to leave them either. So we're not like, just get out of your job as soon as you can. Like, I really valued staying in my job for as long as it made sense to do that. So we don't rush you out of a job. There's not a problem working in a job while you're building your business, but it's something we perfectionists can be really all or nothing about, or we can have a lot of shame about the job and not being fully in the business yet, or a lot of resentment about it and therefore exhaustion about it. There's just lots of stuff that comes up, how to build your business while you are working a job. We do a lot of coaching on that as well, and power planning supports that. Everything that we do in PGSD is really designed for someone who is in that transition from just starting their business to then being able to have a full-time income from their business. Like, that's really what we're helping with in the program. So we do a lot of coaching on this. And what I see a lot is the all or nothing mindset come up. And particularly in this case, there's many ways it comes up, but in this case, it's unless I completely hate my job or unless I'm completely burned out from my job, then I shouldn't leave it. And so that for me, like, originally I thought that if I liked my job and if I was happy in my job, I would never leave. And my backstory too is I wasn't the entrepreneur who was like, I could never work for someone else. I've always had to be my own boss. I can't stand working for someone else and getting told what to do. I am quite happy working for someone else. I could still be quite happy working for someone else. For me, my business wasn't a reaction to my own issues with working for someone else. For a lot of people, they want to have the freedom. That's why they start a business. For me, that wasn't it. I wanted to have something meaningful. That was really what I was wanting to do for myself, for my career. It was less about, I don't want to work for someone else. And it was more about, I want to do something really meaningful and that is challenging and that will grow me. And I want to be self-expressed. Like, I want to feel like I'm actually using my potential and using the skills that I have. And for me, that meant starting a business and figuring that out and doing the personal development and becoming a coach and all of the journey that I've been on. So we can be in this place of, if I like my job or if I even love it or enjoy it, then I might never leave. So I should hate my job. So I should subconsciously burn myself out from my job so that I do actually leave. Like, as motivation to leave, I will make sure that I don't get comfortable here. I will make sure that I don't like it here so that I have reason to go. But if you really think about it, how many people do you know that hate their job and just keep staying? It hasn't motivated them. They're not doing anything else to be able to change what they're doing. Like, they haven't got a business that they're building. They haven't got something else that they are working on in the meantime so that they can eventually go to that. They are just hating their job and not doing anything about it. And partly that is because it is so exhausting to hate where you are, to be so disconnected from and ungrateful for where you are, to tell yourself that you're behind or you shouldn't be doing it, or, oh my God, I can't believe they're getting me to do this. Like, all of that takes your energy. And yes, working in a job takes time, but I think the most draining thing about having a job while building a business, and this is speaking from my personal experience and coaching so many PGSDers on this as well, the thing that will take your energy isn't the time that you're actually at your job. It's the energy that is drained from your story about your job, from the resentment, from the bitterness, from the annoyance, from any of your thoughts that you have about it that aren't actually aligned with the reality of the situation, which is you want to be working in that job because you want the money from that job. You are doing it for the money. You are working that job for the money, and that's a beautiful thing because that means there isn't the pressure to then make money from your business. And there is a time and a place for that. This episode isn't for the person who is in that time and place where they need to not have financial pressure, but there is a period where it is so beneficial to not have pressure on your business. Like for me, I knew that if I had to go from full-time job to full-time entrepreneurship, that was just such a big leap that it just wasn't going to be possible for me. So it was when I was able to see actually there can be a stepping stone and I can go to a part-time job. That was so helpful to not then have all this pressure to make the leap, but all of this to say that in that period, when I went to having a part-time job, I needed to not have financial pressure on the business. I'd made $3,000 in total from my business at that point in time. There wasn't a huge amount of proof of concept in a sense. I mean, there was in a lot of ways, but there also wasn't. There's lots of arguments I could have made for like, this really isn't going to go anywhere. But I had the courage to take the leap from my full-time job to a part-time job. But I knew I couldn't put myself in a financially stressful situation because I wasn't at the point yet that I could handle it. Later on, I was in a situation a couple of years later in that part-time job, or the next year actually in 2018, where I realized like, oh, actually now having all of the income come from my part-time job and having none of it come from the business is actually, I'm like using that as a way to not be on the hook. And I actually need to put myself on the hook here and get myself to pay money from the business to my own personal income. So with that said, there is a beautiful time for a job. And if you are in that time where you do want to have that income coming in, you have got to change your relationship with your job to really see your job as your angel investor in your business. Your job is giving you the financial runway so that you can make calmer, clearer, long-term decisions for your business. It is not stealing your time. It is not stealing your energy. And that's even if it's a very demanding job. So when I was in my full-time job, and this is just me chatting away, so I hope it's really helpful. When I was in my full-time job, I really just had the story of if I could just work full-time on my business, I'd be so much more successful. And my biggest issue is that I don't have the time. And I'm so glad that I was able to leave that job and see that lack of time was not my problem. I just procrastinated once I left that job. I spent a lot of time being busy doing things that didn't really matter in my business, about 5 months of that, before I then had another realization of like, oh, okay, I can see that the actual issue was my perfectionism and the perfectionist fears I had. Like my biggest fear of what if I try my best at this business and it doesn't work out? That was my fear. So the way that I would protect myself from that is I wouldn't try my best. I'd still be busy working, but I wouldn't do the things I really knew I needed to do, so that I always had an excuse with myself of, well, I would be more successful if I just did XYZ, if I just sold this thing, if I just marketed more consistently. Like there was always a reason. And that reason gave me hope. And that reason allowed me to feel like I had potential and that it was still possible to fulfill my potential. It really takes, and this is something we really support within PGSD, is that it really takes a level of personal development to be able to face that perfectionist fear head on. And we give you lots of tools and support to support with this because it's really hard to do this alone, is the perfectionist fear of what if I try my best and my best isn't good enough. And because of that fear, we avoid doing our best, but we avoid it at like the avoidance is so draining that we're also very tired and frustrated and busy and all of that, but we're still avoiding. So when it comes to leaving your job, going back, that was a bit of a tandem, going back, you need to really be in this place of I can love my job and leave it. So if you need to keep staying in your job, change that relationship. And if you are ready to leave, we really want to have you be clear that we don't want the job to get worse. Like if you're ready to leave but scared, and so you haven't, that we don't want you to subconsciously create a burnout situation like this PGSDer, for example. She said that she does graphic design. and she was doing graphic design she has a client that she does a lot of work for, and that client gives her work at 8 p.m. and then expects it the next day. And her work expects her to be available, and her client expects that work to be turned around, and she does it. The classic perfectionist people pleaser, not wanting to let people down. And so she doesn't want to let them down, so she lets herself down by not doing the things she wants to do, which is to spend that time on her business or with her family or hanging out by herself and doing whatever she would like to do. So we can do stuff like that where we let boundaries either be non-existent or be eroded just so we have an excuse to leave. And I don't want you to go through the pain of that when that's completely unnecessary. It's like if you were in a relationship and you want to leave the relationship, so you cheat. Like there are people who you can tell from the outside, it's very clear they're just not happy, but it feels so weird for them to break up with someone that they cheat or like they do something that will make the other person break up with them so that they don't have to do the breaking up, so that they can avoid that. And that's often, I think, just happening super subconsciously. It's not a conscious thing that people decide. I mean, I'm sure some do, but most of the time, it is a very subconscious thing that we do, that we make a situation bad so that either we are forced to leave it or someone else forces us to leave it. So, for example, when I asked this PGSDer, okay, what if they let you go today? How do you feel? And she said, relieved. It's the irony of perfectionism that we love having control. We love to feel super in control of things. And yet we constantly want to be forced to do things. So we want to be forced to make a decision because then if we're forced to make a decision by someone else, or if someone else makes the decision for us, then we don't have to be responsible for that decision. And therefore, there's no risk we made the wrong decision and no risk of shame. So while we want to have all of the control, we oftentimes are like, no, I just want someone else to decide for me. Or it'd be so much easier if I just didn't even have the option. Like this came up for me when I was breastfeeding the twins and when I was at the point where it wasn't sustainable, but it was. So like emotionally, it wasn't sustainable anymore, but physically it was sustainable. I had the supply and I could physically do the feeding and do the pumping. But emotionally, I was at the point where it wasn't sustainable. And I found myself thinking that I wish I just wasn't even able to breastfeed so that the decision could be taken out of my hands, so that I didn't have to actively decide what to do. And especially a topic like that, where there's so much societal pressure around what right and wrong is. And there can just be, and the same with a job and pursuing a business and all of that, that there can really be, you have a clear desire of what you want to do, or it just seems obvious, but you have all of these reasons not to do it because you feel like you're wrong to do it. Like the example with the twins, like clearly feeding them formula makes sense when it's emotionally, like mentally unsustainable for me. And yet, because of the constant story of what it should be like, and especially if you do have supply and if you don't have feeding issues, why should you feed them formula? Like that's what we're constantly told. So I had so many emotions to work through to actually just decide, because the decision wasn't forced upon me. I could have kept going, but I decided to consider my own mental health in the equation. I decided to consider myself in the equation of feeding, not just the babies. And so that is something we're not really taught to do. But all of this to say, we perfectionists can be like, I wish someone would just decide for me. Either the boss would decide to let me go, or the person would break up with me so I don't have to break up with them, instead of like, actually, I want the control. I want to be able to decide things. And it's so important in entrepreneurship, especially if you want to be successful in business. One of the skill sets you need to have is being able to make decisions when you're not forced to make decisions. If you're only able to make decisions when you are absolutely forced to because things are horrific, or you just say, well, I'm not going to make a decision, I'm going to wait for someone else to make that decision, I wish there was like a deadline. I need a deadline to make a decision, or I need the client to make the decision. This can come up in so many subtle ways, but you need to be able in business to make decisions even when things aren't bad. And to like, that's how you innovate. That's how you make change. That's how you explore things instead of like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like 100% double down on the things that work and keep doing them. And also, you need to be able to experiment. You need to allow yourself to be free to try things. And that will often mean changing from something good to doing something else, even though that something else is uncertain. I want to talk about uncertainty as well. Let me just write a little note down so I remember to come back to it. I don't know if you can hear my really squeaky laptop stand. That is just the squeakiest thing ever. Anyway, so when it comes to leaving the job, we don't want you to subconsciously make it so bad that you have to leave. You've got to develop, and you want to develop the ability to be able to decide that instead of wanting that decision to be out of your hands, like wanting to be fired, wanting to be made redundant, for example. The other thing to really be thinking about with this is uncertainty and your capacity for holding uncertainty. So when I was coaching this PGSDer, it really just reminded me of the emotions of leaving a job, and that our brain can kind of put it in this very logical situation of like, well, if the money, it's kind of this question in our brains of like, either the money's there or it isn't. And what actually goes on is that, so for example, this PGSDer, she was worried about the money, and yet she had about 9 different streams of income, a lot of skills, a lot of ability to get a different job if she did leave that job and then she wanted to go back to the workforce. Like, there were no signs whatsoever that this PGSDer wouldn't be completely financially okay. And yet her brain was like, but what if? What if I'm not able to actually keep making the money that I need to make to be able to pay my own expenses? And it's okay that your brain is saying that. And that doesn't mean to wait until it's absolutely certain and to wait until it's absolutely guaranteed that your business will always be able to pay the expenses of your personal life and support you, because that certainty is never coming. That certainty that you are looking for is not going to be coming. And so if you are waiting for that guarantee, which inherently entrepreneurship, there is risk involved in entrepreneurship. You do need to have the capacity for uncertainty. This is where coaching is so important, because if we are hitting our upper limits of how much uncertainty we can feel, we make bad decisions to try and get out of uncertainty, and to instead be able to be held and guided to continue growing your business while feeling uncertain, you will have a completely different business. But if just left to your own devices, whenever you're feeling uncertain about things, you do think I'm trying to think of a really good example, but essentially you just make decisions so that you can feel certain. So for example, you might be charging a new price for a service that you offer, and there's uncertainty in that. No one's ever paid it before. Will someone pay it? And if you're feeling really uncertain about it, you might just want to go back to charging what you've always charged. You just might want to go back to, okay, well, I'll just do what I know people will do, or like you offer a discount to them and they haven't even said anything that would make you do that. But like, don't worry, you could have it for this amount. Like, you just want to be back in the certainty instead of, and I was coaching another PGSDer on this. For her service that she offers, she had decided to take away her payment plan. She liked her reasons for that. And she was about to get on a consult call, and she was having nervousness about it. And she was feeling like, I don't know if I should follow through with my plan to not offer this payment plan. What if they think it's really unreasonable that I don't do that? What if they think it's not accessible? And so I was able to coach her and support her to be able to stick with the plan that she wanted to stick with while feeling uncertain, instead of, if just left to our own devices in those situations, we go back to, okay, I will just offer the payment plan and I will just keep doing that. But you can't grow your business if you need to be certain about everything. You need capacity for uncertainty. And so part of this shift of being able to leave your job is going into the place of, and there's a very good chance you might need coaching to support you with this, but going into, and what it looks like, but to go into the place of, I can hold uncertainty. I can handle uncertainty. I can handle high levels of uncertainty. And even, you might even be able to get to, I like uncertainty. Not from this, like, how people say things like, just get comfortable being uncomfortable, and kind of those catchphrases that we're all kind of like, yeah, but I really don't like being uncomfortable. Like when you're actually in discomfort, you're like, oh, I don't like this. It's not from this place of trying to just, intellectually understand uncertainty is good, but really starting to see, this might take yourself a little while to wrap your mind around it, but the possibility that comes from entrepreneurship is bred by the uncertainty that is inherent to entrepreneurship. The risk and reward. There is a higher reward because there is a higher risk, because there is uncertainty. And so if you used to being in a job and being in a certain level of certainty, albeit it's still uncertain, you can get let go at any point, but there's a perception of certainty that you will get paid. If you come at these times and you don't do anything horrific, you will get paid this amount. And then if you do that for X number of years, you will get promoted to this role, and then you get paid this amount. And if you do that for X number of years, then you get promoted to that role and get paid that amount. There's a lot of certainty in that, but there's also not a lot of possibility. So for me, part of what really helped me to leave my accounting job and then also to leave my part-time job was really recognizing that as much as my perfectionist brain just wanted to be in the certainty of everything and be quite all or nothing about certainty, either everything is certain or everything's uncertain, to just actually be in the reality of, I don't like the certainty in this job. And I prefer, as uncomfortable as it can be, I prefer the uncertainty of entrepreneurship, because that's where there's possibility and growth, and it's exciting and it's exhilarating and it's scary. And it's just, I feel alive in the uncertainty. I feel alive in entrepreneurship in a way that I don't when I'm in a job where I'm just told what to do and I do it. And then I repeat that every week. So really, for this episode, the things I really want to leave you with and just underline from this episode is, you can love it and then leave it. It's not either or. You can love your job. If staying in your job is the right thing to do, you may as well enjoy it so it doesn't drain your energy. Because your thoughts about your job, if you were resenting it all the time, feeling bitter about it, complaining about it in your head, complaining about it to other people, that is taking energy that could be going to your business or yourself or the other things that are important to you in your life. So there's that. And it's about being able to hold uncertainty instead of waiting for it to be certain that you'll definitely succeed forever in your business. That level of certainty is never going to come, but you can be certain about some things. You can be certain that you're going to get the support and put that in place that you need. You can be certain that you are going to try your best, no matter what that might look like. And even though your best right now might not feel like it's that good, you can still be certain that you will try your best, or that you will keep trying, and that you won't give up, and that you can be certain that you can always go back to employment pretty damn easily if you need to. That was a thing for me once I went full time in my business, because I had such an ego about, and like not consciously, but I could tell for sure it was there, of like this all or nothing of just like, once I've left, I want to be gone. Like I want to be out of employment forever. And so that made me stay at my job a lot longer than I actually needed to. I was making $150,000 in my business when I left my part-time job, because of this all or nothing of, once I go, I can never go back, or that would be so embarrassing. So I need to make sure I have dotted every I and crossed every T to be able to actually leave. And that isn't the reality. I could have very easily gone back to a job, and either no one would have cared or said anything, or if they would have, it wouldn't have mattered to me. Or if it did matter to me, I would have probably felt bad about it for a week and then moved on. The only downside of going back to employment would be my own emotional life and what I would have created in my own emotions, which I could also handle. I could handle the uncertainty, and I hadn't realized it at the time, but I could handle the emotions that would come from if I did need to go back to employment. And I think for any entrepreneur, it's so powerful to have employment be an option that remains open forever. Instead of like, well, no, now I've been successful for so many years. I definitely couldn't go back now. That would be so embarrassing. To just be like, at any point I could go back if I want. It's do I want to or not? Not this like I should or I shouldn't, or it would be embarrassing if there's like none of that. Like, do I want to? Does it make sense? If so, yes, I'll do it. If not, no, I won't do it. So I hope that's helpful to just hear a bunch of my thoughts about when you are ready to go full time in your business and quit your job, but you're scared to do it. Because for me, that was just such a ride, and one I still remember so clearly because of all the emotions of it. And I did an episode, I'll link it up in the show notes. I'm just writing down to link it up. I did an episode on my journey from full-time employment to full-time entrepreneurship. And so I will link that up because that was me sharing like just after I went full-time in my business about the journey of that and the emotions of that and the details. And I will have shared some of the similar things, but I will have also shared different things in that as well that'll be really helpful. And I know for me, when I was going full time in my business, surrounding myself with stories of people doing it was really helpful. And also, being able to be supported to do it made such a difference. So if you aren't yet considering joining us in Perfectionists Getting Shit Done, you want to do that. You want to be inside. We are opening again in April for 1 week only. This is something we coach on all the time. We support with so much. So many PGSDers are either in the process of working in a job while building their business, leaving a job and figuring out that journey, or they've just gone full time in their business. They aren't yet making a full time income in their business, but they have left the job to be able to have more time. Like that is really who we support. Anyone who's on that journey between full-time employment, or even if you don't have a job, you're welcome to join us. It might be you have a spouse supporting you or savings, or you're retired. So many different situations you could be in. But if you want to have a really meaningful business without abandoning yourself in the process, without having to go against your values and what's important to you, like you want to actually have a business that means something to you and to other people while taking care of yourself and taking care of the other things in your life. That is literally what we do inside Perfectionists Getting Shit Done. That is what we are experts in. And you will have so much support. So for me, for example, when I was leaving, and I will talk about this in the episode, if you go back and listen to that one, I mentioned that I was working with a coach because I didn't have somewhere like PGSD that was so specific for me. So I was working with a coach, and having someone to support me on that and really allow me to make that leap while being uncertain about it I'm positive without that support, I wouldn't have been able to do that because it was scary. It was a leap. It was a big decision. That's what it felt like to me, even though I now understand it wasn't as big a deal as I was making it because I could always go back to employment. In my brain at the time, I couldn't go back. I had to figure it out. Once I left, I had to be gone. And I really just needed support to really call me into what was possible, because I kept also being like, I really want to be full time, like making a full time income. I'm not sure when that'll be. Like, I don't actually know. Like, that just feels so far away. I was saying that at the beginning of 2019, that it felt so far away. And then I did it in the middle of that year. I share more in that episode. But it really is such a ride. Most people out there in the world, I believe, want to do it. I have so many people come up to me when I'm out that makes it sound like it's podcast listeners. It's like just everyday people that if I talk to them, they're like, when I say I have a business, they're like, oh, I have a business I want to start. And they are wanting to have their own thing, but fear, perfectionism, those things stop them from being able to do it. And I don't want those things to stop you. That's why PGSD exists. So you can go to samlarabrown.com/PGSD to sign up for the waitlist and join us inside the program. And in the meantime, you can actually sign up for the power planning course where you can start power planning. It only takes an afternoon to learn. That's one of the core tools that we teach inside PGSD and is so supportive for you if you are working a full-time job or a part-time job, or you have other commitments in your life and you're building your business. It supports you with mind management, with time management, with getting out of your own way, stopping overwhelm, stopping procrastination, stopping overthinking. So you can start learning that today from me inside the power planning course. So I will leave the link to that in the show notes. I believe it is samlarabrown.com/planning. So jump into the power planning course and join us inside Perfectionists Getting Shit Done. But I hope this episode has been super helpful, and it's a wild ride to go from full-time employment to full-time entrepreneurship, and you have a lot to be proud of for even attempting that, and we just love helping you succeed at that. And I just wanted to record this episode for anyone who's just like on the cusp of doing that, but just has that fear of the uncertainty stopping them. And I really hope this episode supports you to take that leap and to be able to take action on the thing that you've been wanting to do and that you already know that you're ready for, but your legs have been trembling a little. It's okay if your legs are trembling. Mine were. You can take the leap. So with that said, I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed that episode. So, as mentioned, the power planning course is now officially open for enrollment. You can go to samlarabrown.com/planning to sign up today. You can learn power planning within one afternoon. I will personally guide you through your very first power hour. Everything is in there for you to start power planning. It's a very simple process. Anyone can learn it, and you can use it right away to build your business. You can say goodbye to your overwhelming to-do list and start power planning so your business can finally grow. So samlarabrown.com/planning is where to sign up today.